Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connection, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Back to Basics, Reconnecting to the Essence of You. Today's guest is Allison Maslan, a serial entrepreneur who has built 10 successful companies over the past 4 decades. She's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Scale or Fail, a book endorsed by Shark Tank investors Daymond and Barbara Corcoran. Allison was recently named by Forbes as one of the 10 women entrepreneurs to watch. Through her company, Pinnacle Global Network, she and her team of CEO mentors have helped over 150,000 founders scale their companies and build businesses that create real freedom in their lives. Her mission is simple but powerful: help entrepreneurs stop being trapped in their business and start building companies that truly scale. Hello, Allison, and welcome to Back to Basics.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
It will be. And then, exciting is that reading your intro and seeing what you're all about in lifestyle. And off record, we were talking about the beautiful place you're in Mexico. And obviously you build the life you want for yourself. So it's exciting and inspiring that you're helping others do the same.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. So tell us a little bit, Alison, about you're the younger version of yourself, what the entrepreneurial spark there when you were a little girl, or, tell us a little bit about what you were passionate about then.
Well, my father was a consummate entrepreneur, and my grandfather started a women's clothing store in Kansas City, Kansas. And then my father, they actually won a second store in a poker game in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so that's where I was born. And then my dad expanded that chain, it was called Stewart's, across the United States. And so I grew up just with him, going from store to store and working in the warehouse, in the summers, unpacking boxes and just really learning through watching him and how he approached business. He was super innovative and very courageous. And so that's really all I knew. So I started my first business when I was 19 years old. And I tried, I couldn't hold a job, Leticia. I was really bad at being told what to do. So I would keep a job and it would last for like 2 weeks. So I thought I better figure out this business thing.
Well, I love it. And I'm sure that based on your background, that probably your dad didn't have a problem. Like most parents would say, no, you have to have a job, that this whole building a business is crazy, but that's, I guess, on the DNA when you see it and you can breathe it and touch it. So could you share what was that first business you created? What was your idea and how you brought it to life?
Yeah. So first when I was in college, I started writing poetry for birthdays and anniversaries and would do the calligraphy for them and so forth. And so I started making a little bit of money and I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. And then that evolved into doing greeting cards for corporations. And then that evolved into, by the time I was 25, I had a full service advertising and PR firm. And we had big clients like Ben and Jerry's and Supercuts and Allstate. And so I really just learned by doing. I didn't have an education in it. I didn't necessarily have any, degree in marketing, but people would just ask me, do you do radio? Do you do television? And I'd say, sure. Because my dad would say, if you feel like it's worthwhile, just say yes and figure out how to do it. So then I would hang out at the TV station or the radio station, and I'd say, hey, could you teach me everything I need to know? Or I would go to the print runs that they would do in the middle of the night, these like 3 a.m. print runs. So I would learn from the printers how it all worked. And that's really how it all happened.
I love that. And it's almost like a reflection point, because I hear so many people sometimes when you hear ideas, right? And you talk, and I love brainstorming, but it's almost like I go to a business meeting and we end up talking about what that person's dream or passion job is. And I just love to sit in that place where you encourage them and probably get them unstuck. And it's like the art of the possible, if you believe in it. So your story is perfect, because a lot of people, they create this idea that if you don't know about this, if you don't have a degree on this, if you don't, then you cannot do it. You cannot allow yourself to dream it. But the fact that when you say, well, and this became this, and this became that, and I was going to say, what would you say that made that something became something else? And you answer by, I learned by doing what's being asked of me. And I think that's really a superpower, to have that drive to say, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out.
I mean, that really was it. I had no idea. And once I committed, I had to figure it out. In a sense, my back was against the wall, so it made me figure it out. And I wasn't afraid to ask. And I think that people are generally helpful if you ask. And at the time, as a woman entrepreneur, this was back in the 90s, so there were not a lot of women entrepreneurs back then, and we definitely didn't have the internet yet. It was just about to happen. And so, maybe I stood out like a sore thumb because they weren't used to seeing that. But I thought it was an advantage at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's great. And that whole idea, I wasn't afraid to ask. And yeah, sometimes we feel that if we let people know that we don't know too much about something, that's going to cut our wings. And sometimes it actually makes you feel more trustworthy, I think, because then you're being transparent with whomever you're encountering, and that builds trust.
100%. You've got to be completely honest. And then there's nothing to hide. And I just learned so much. And, there were things that fell apart. There were all kinds of crazy things that happened, back in that time, as far as, I remember one time, just kind of crazy things. One time I did a big photo shoot with all these models, and we had the photos that we had picked, these little slides. Now, this was before digital, and it was in a black notebook. And we had selected the photos, and I was about to drive over to the client, and I put it on top of my black Pontiac and drove off.
Oh my God.
And that was it. Like, never to be found again. I had to go face this person, which was terrifying to me. Like, I felt like it was the end of the world. And, we worked it out. And then another time I had these greeting cards that I was supposed to deliver to this Catholic church. I'll never forget it. These women that were waiting they were ready to start filling them out. I think it was over Christmas. And so the printer came to my office with these boxes, and I said, can you do me a favor? Here's my key. Could you put it in the back of my car, the trunk of my car? He goes, absolutely. Comes back, gives me the key. I go down, and there's absolutely nothing in the back of my car. And so apparently there was another Ford Taurus in the parking lot that my key fit, and that was the end of that. So I had to go face those people and say, I don't have them. And so, I was young back then, and those are, you really had to learn to face conflict, and it was super painful and embarrassing. But I'm glad that I had those experiences then, because it made me stronger today.
That's a if I was Oprah, which of course I'm not, it would be like a quotable moment, learn to face conflict. I think that's such a powerful statement. And I mean, obviously in what you do now, you mentor other CEOs, but that's something that you don't hear that often. Like, you hear other people mentoring and it's like, but this is inevitable. You will have conflict and you better learn to face it and deal with it early on. Otherwise it's gonna get ugly and very stressful.
Yes, you cannot run from it because it will just continue to grow, right?
It's gonna hit you. So you build this first company. You went to build 10. Of course, I wish I had time to go into detail of all of them. But then, how do you move like from one venture to the next? And I wonder, what is it in your entrepreneurial spirit that says, okay, this is good. I mean, they're gonna exit this business, sell it, or keep it there, but I'm gonna pursue something else.
Yeah, I think each situation was a little bit different, and some of them continued to run while I had others. Like, for instance, I was a homeopathic physician for 20 years. And so while I was running that was from 96 to 2016, I had other business ventures going on. And so for most of them, I just knew when it was time for me to move on. I always followed my passion. It was never saying, oh, this is where the market's going, and so this is the type of business I'm going to launch. For me personally, I needed to follow things that I loved, that I was going to wake up excited about. And when it would come to a point that I felt like, this has been great, I've taken it to a next level, let's go ahead and sell this business because I'm just not feeling the spark right now. That's kind of when I knew it was time to move on. And I think a lot of business owners wait too long. And because they're afraid, and it's totally understandable. What if the next thing won't be successful? How do I make that transition and so forth? But yeah, that's really how the journey has been. And now the company that I run, Pinnacle Global Network, we've been 17 years. And I love it because now we just help other people grow their businesses. So I'm good now.
I love that. And I'm glad you got there. So tell us about this new, well, it's not new if it's been 10 years, but the mission, it's obviously something you seem passionate about, and you wrote a book, which we're going to touch upon too, but like this idea of helping others scale. And if you can and be successful, can you share in your experience on this span of time that you've been doing this, like what's one of the main blockers for a business owner to scale their business or grow it to its full potential, do you think?
I would say the number one blocker is that we are creatures of habit. And we do what we do and we do what we know. And so when you start your business, you've got your hands in everything. And we call that the seeker phase. That's phase one. And it should be that way. But then as you grow and you start building a team and you're expanding and you're putting systems and processes in place and you have a bigger vision, now you've got to really rebuild your structure so there's room for growth. And then you've got to let go and replace yourself in a lot of the aspects that you had been doing in the beginning. And this is the piece that most business owners get stuck on because they feel like they have to be the one, and that if they do step away, that things will fall apart. And so they need to approve everything going in and out of the business. They're not hiring fast enough. And they're also kind of choking the creativity of a lot of their employees because they feel like they know how it has to be. And so it really is that idea of what got you here won't get you there.
That's fascinating because I'm sure that there's also that vision compromise. Like the founder usually has a vision that is very specific, and we often hear like that vision is what really can get you where you want to go. And if they let go too soon, then the vision might get lost in the process. And so it's always like that fine balance between not losing the vision, but at the same time hiring talent so that you can go faster and accelerate. Is there like an ideal moment or a sign where you can say, the vision is well set, now keep going, even sometimes when the company is not even profit? I think that's the biggest thing. When companies, startups especially, to get to profit, it takes a while. But that doesn't mean they're not there. They are already on track. It's just, it's not that clear.
Well, I feel like that when they get out of the weeds, now they can really be the visionary. So I'm not saying let go of the vision. Once you get out of the weeds, you can really be carrying that vision, and that becomes your role. Instead of being that operator, integrator, and that everything maker within the business, now you are setting the tone for the future. This is what we stand for. This is our why. And that is really your role in the company at this point. So every meeting, every conversation, it's about what we're creating in the world, why we're here, and getting people behind that. And then that next transition is for the team to start carrying the vision. Because once you've been shouting it from the mountaintops enough, you start attracting people that are in alignment with that vision. And so they're the perfect galvanizers to carry it forward. But that really is like my role in the company now. I'm not in the day-to-day anymore. I have a full team managed company. But because, and being here in Mexico half the year, stepping away clears my head so I can come up with new ideas, new revenue streams, new opportunities, because we're expanding globally. I'm working on my next book, and that also helps the company grow. So if I was in the weeds of the day-to-day, none of that would be happening.
That's a great point of view, and an example of you yourself and how you're growing your company. So I will, of course, have the webpage, Pinnacle Global Network .com. But so if you want to share a little bit that like healthy engagement, if you are talking to a business owner or a CEO that's struggling with scaling, then they, they request support. So I understand you call it, or your team calls it, scale sessions, and there's CEO mentorship. What can they expect from engaging with your team?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So what is so unique about Pinnacle Global Network is that we have a team of mentors that work with our clients one-on-one, and they have all built very successful companies. Some of them have taken their companies public, had thousands of employees, international companies, done M&A and acquisition and all of that. And so we have a matching process when you come in to figure out who's going to be the right mentor for you based on, personality and history and, type of business and so forth. And then, so you receive, they support you to build out that big picture vision. Because I find, Leticia, that most business owners have a very fuzzy vision of what it is they want to create. They really struggle with that. So we help you build that out and then reverse engineer that so that we can support you along the way, the steps to make it happen. And then we also we have a large global community of founders, and we do masterminding, and we do events, and we do, labs like AI lab and marketing lab and sales lab and so forth. And they can send their teams to those as well. We also work with the leadership team, and we also mentor the leadership team. So it really is this all-encompassing support system for all aspects of the business, not just marketing or sales, but the whole engine, and the CEO themselves as a leader. And so we have many of our clients that have been with us, even over 10 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's good, and I'm sure somebody out there is like resonated, because it's there's serious like founder burnout and identity confusion in terms of who I am and how feeling stuck. So that's fascinating. And I imagine with all your background, that's probably they say you felt compelled to write a book about it, Scale or Fail. So tell us a little bit about how the book idea came about and how you brought it to reality.
Yeah, I mean, Scale or Fail, my first book, Blast Off, out in 2009. So, and then Scale or Fail came out at really 2019. And so we had been helping companies scale, around 2009, when I was looking to do my next business. I had a lot of people asking me, Allison, how do you do this? How do you build these companies? And for me, because I had grown up in this, it just seemed like the natural thing to do. And so then I thought, wow, I could really help people with this. And then that's how kind of Pinnacle was born. And then we really found our sweet spot of scaling, helping companies build a team managed business, a founder independent business, and then a more scalable model so they could multiply their growth. And this was a formula we created called the Scale It method, which covers all 5 pillars of scaling, which is strategic vision, cash flow, alliance of the team, leadership, and execution. So that's really what Scale or Fail is all about. It is our formula for scaling and the step-by-step. So a lot of people read that book and go back to their team and work through the processes and everything. And so I'm really proud of that book because it's helped so many people bring their dream into reality.
That's fantastic. We definitely have the links to the books on the show notes. And so I know it's a cliche question, but it's like when people look at you and they see you successful and they say, wow, you build this and that. But I'm sure, and you shared that it's not all great, it's not all shiny, it's not all success. There are moments where I'm sure you also felt like, well, this is not going the way I want. This is not. What advice would you give yourself? It's a cliche question because I am not the first one to ask, but in this case, it's very relevant to say, Allison, if I had known this, my first advice to people I mentor are the things, if I had known this 20 years ago, my trajectory would have probably been different. And instead of holding on to this knowledge, I want to pass it on so you don't have to wait this long to kind of discover, something. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. I mean, you might look at what I'm sharing with you here and say, oh, she's, got it all together. It was so easy. Mm-hmm. No, the entrepreneurial path is definitely not for the faint of heart. But it is extremely rewarding when you keep going, regardless of what you're faced with. Because there's so many times that I could have quit. I think the success came because I just decided that it would be successful. But that doesn't mean that there haven't been incredible roadblocks along the way. I think the biggest turning point for me was with that first business. I ended up, because I didn't really know how to scale, I didn't know how to be a leader. I was that control freak with my team, and I was working 24/7. My daughter was very young, and I ended up completely burning out, just really imploding from the stress. I had a terrible car accident from the exhaustion. And so that was a big wake-up call for me back then to go, oh, wow, this is going to kill me if I don't get my act together here. And I need to learn. I need to get support. I can't do this on my own. And so that's when I started working with mentors back then. And that really changed my life. Somebody that would be willing to be very honest with me and have those tough conversations, the tough love to say, hey, you're doing this to yourself. And so that's really where my Scale It method started coming together. I really built it for myself to learn how to do this and actually have a have a pathway forward. So that was a long answer, but I would just say the advice that I would give myself now would be don't do it alone. Why would you do it alone? And asking for help is not a weakness. It is a sign of strength.
That's very valuable because the entrepreneur journey, it's very lonely. And I'm sure you said something that I love, which is I decided that I was going to be successful. But in that decision, weren't there people around you that say she's crazy at some point or that didn't believe or didn't support? And I think that's
I still do. They still think I'm crazy, but at this point now they know I'm going to do it anyway. So, I think people worry, and my mom always worried about me, so she would say, why don't you just get a job as a backup? Mm-hmm. Or people would say, don't get ahead of yourself, or who do you think you are, kind of thing. And, I really think it's just they're projecting their own fear on you or their own insecurity. So if you plug into that, it's going to completely derail you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I totally agree. And that's why I want to make this extra point, because I know people that listen to Back to Basics are people that want to be inspired, people that want to get unstuck, people that have been dreaming of something, which is what makes them tick, and somehow forgot how to connect to that. And then to hear somebody like you saying, well, yeah, I'm successful, but people thought I'm crazy. My mom is asking me to have a backup plan, and it keeps happening even now. I think that's super important, because if you don't I always say, if you're not your biggest cheerleader and you cannot believe in yourself and you cannot give you that extra, cheer, then who's going to do it? Nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
So
you do.
Be connected to that.
Well, we're our toughest critics, and we can be really hard on ourselves. So there's so much mindset work that you need to practice every single day as an entrepreneur, because every day you're going to have stuff coming at you that you didn't expect. It's just part of it. And now I'm at a point where sometimes I'll laugh, because it's just kind of funny in a sense. Oh yeah, here we go again, sort of thing. But it's going to be okay, because you always figure it out. That's the blessing of going through difficult times, because you came out the other side of it. You're still here, you're still breathing. So you can do that again.
That's so empowering. Thank you for that. So we talk about that, how to keep going on the business side, but you also, and obviously you share, you spend half your year in Mexico, and you create a lifestyle. So I also, when I mentor high schoolers, which I love to do, and they tell me, I want to be a nurse. I always say, what do you envision doing in the future? Are you somebody that likes traveling? Because certain jobs are not going to support that lifestyle. And I force these young people to think about what kind of life do you dream of, and then try to align whatever you're going to do in the future to that. How has that worked out for you in terms of building a lifestyle that you have created for yourself?
Yeah, I think that it's just about not settling. And to me, business really is an expression of yourself and your creativity. And you can have that in other areas of your life. I think if we're just all business 24/7, we become very boring people. And I married an entrepreneur, and that was actually intentional, because I would date, gentlemen that were in the corporate world. And I would be like, hey, I had the freedom to go, hey, let's go take a trip here. And they said they couldn't do that because they had their 2 weeks of the year. And I remember just feeling frustrated and realizing, I better find myself another entrepreneur, because they need to understand you and what makes you tick. And so both my husband and I, we've been together, this is 20 years this year. We love business, and we actually work together in the business. And we also love to travel, and, we love living abroad and really experiencing life together. So I'm so grateful there. I would just say, don't settle, because there's so much. You can learn something new every day. You can start painting or learning Spanish or golfing, whatever it is. But yeah, life just keeps moving on, whether we step forward or not.
Yeah, well, another beautiful nugget of wisdom on the personal side you deliver, to be intentional about your partner too and what they like doing, because I think that's also how some people get stuck with good people, but not maybe an ideal match for, again, that lifestyle you imagine for yourself. And it sounds so like unimportant, that lifestyle. Like, what do you envision for yourself? And everything has to align: your partner, your job, what else that you do, because that way you can really get closer to that, rather than maybe going through 3 divorces and painful experiences before you get to where you were supposed to go in the first place. And that's why this show is called Back to Basics, to try.
Yes. Well, I did have the earlier marriage. I will say that.
But still, 20 years is still a full marriage for many people.
So it's good. I think, for me, it was interesting because I was a single mom for 12 years. I dated for quite some time. And I just remember thinking, my dream man is out there. And I would talk to people and they say, Allison, what you want doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was in my early, I met my husband, I was 42. But even up to that point, they were like, no, they want to date younger women. Who you're with is fine, kind of thing.
Like you're 30, so you obviously had a very early start in the very well.
Yeah, and so I just didn't settle. I think that is really the key. I think sometimes we're afraid to be alone, or I just need to stay in this situation because I can't have anything better. And if you decide that will be your reality. And so I just refused to listen, and so I was able to find the right one.
Well, that's, I love that. And my audience knows I met my husband on Match.com exactly because of what you're saying. Like, I was told what you want is not possible. And then, online dating deliver the impossible.
I met my husband on Match.com too. How funny.
They should be advertising. And we met 21 years ago on Match.com.
Oh, yeah.
We've been married
so we met
18.
21 years ago, too. So it was probably around the same time. Now, I don't know if Match.com is even popular today.
Alison, we're pitching this ad for Match.com.
We are. I guess so.
The two couples, we go in there and we say, blast from the past. But it's true. I do think they still exist. And that's something I'm very open about. And I'm glad you did too, because that also brings hope to people out there. That I remember when we were doing this, people were saying, you're nuts. And it's dangerous.
Well,
it
was more new back then. But I will also say that in my profile, I said what I wanted. I said I wanted to meet my soulmate. I said I wanted to get married. This is the kind of person that I want. So I wasn't on there to just mess around. And Absolutely. So I think you got to ask for what you want. And that is in every area of your life.
Well, since you were met on Match.com too, I will share, because this is something I share and people say I didn't put my picture on Match.com. I say I want a guy that reads the profile and that has substance. And so my strategy was, I'm not going to have a picture, and that's going to clean all the guys that are just the looks. And then I would write to somebody and I would offer my picture, right? And I would say, I read your profile. It sounds interesting. If you want a picture, if you read mine and you like it, I'll send a picture. And that was a filtering process for me. And a lot of people say, I would not do that. And that you have to be confident of what you bring to the table. And, men are more visual than women. I mean, women, we are visual too. But at the same time, it's like sometimes people think that they can just grab attention visually. But at the end of the day, is what you just said. You wrote what you wanted. You were honest about what you wanted. So Match.com deliver what you wanted.
Yes.
Same thing for me. And so I think that would be, so take it from us, people. If you're online and take it from 2 successful marriages. that you have to be honest about what you're looking for and a little blunt, because you're not just meeting somebody just because you're going intentionally to find what you're looking for. So don't be apologetic about asking for what you want.
100%.
This is a good connection we have. So we talk about a lot of stuff, Allison. Is there anything else that we haven't touched upon? Any project, anything that is exciting you these days that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I'm working on my next book, and so I'm very excited about that. So stay tuned on that. That is going to be coming out next summer. Okay. And this book is this book is about fusing quantum physics and strategic scaling together to create exponential growth. So it's a lot of the practice that I use. So it's the whole scale it method, all of the strategies, but then weaving in quantum physics and neuroscience to really attract the right employees, attract incredible partnerships and opportunities, and really creating a vision, helping you create that vision and magnetize that into your life. So I'm almost done writing it. So I'm very excited about it.
That's very exciting. Sounds like something I would love to read. So I would definitely be on the lookout for that. And my last question, I mean, you share a lot of stuff that make you tick. I imagine the beautiful view that you have back there makes you tick. Is there anything else or anything you want to share about how you connect back to your soul when things get a little bit noisy in the outside?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I'll share. Number one is I'm a trapeze artist. I don't know if you knew that.
Wow. No, I didn't. Well, you're Pandora's box.
Yeah. So I've been a trapeze artist for over 25 years. Wow. And I actually, I trained with a 5-generation circus family for about 20 years. And they train for like Cirque du Soleil and things like that. And then in 2017, we built a full trapeze rig in my backyard in San Diego. Wow. And so that's like reconnecting to my soul is up there, flying, because I did that as a kid. Yeah, I was a gymnast as a kid. So it brings me back to being a child and that type of freedom. And it also helps me face my fear up there because it can also be terrifying. And then I'm more resilient on the ground. So yeah, it's not a typical passion or sport, but I just absolutely love it.
Well, I will tell you, I love it because nobody in over 300 and some episodes have given me that answer. So I always love to hear a new answer, because that tells you the breadth of things that, make each person really vibrate and just feel alive. So I thank you for that. And I want to give a shout out to our friend in common, Jennifer Hill, who put us in contact, because she's been one of my favorite all-time guests. And I now know why she speaks so highly of you, Allison. Thank you so much for joining Back to Basics. And thank you, Jen, for connecting us.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Leticia. This is wonderful.
Thank you. And to all of you out there, if this episode doesn't inspire you, I think I'm quitting, because this has been amazing and inspiration for me too. And I hope whatever you are working on out there, even looking to date or anything, we're giving you a little bit of everything. So, make one step at a time and go reconnect to what makes you tick. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Back to Basics. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or any of your favorite streaming platforms. This is the best gift you can give us. Join me next week for another Back to Basics conversation. And if you want to find out about other exciting things I'm working on, visit leticialatino.com. Thank you, and until the next time.